evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of She is Empowered, the interview series right here on Miss Hennessy TV. I am so excited to finally have my next guest here. It's taken us a couple of weeks to connect because as mums, it's very difficult to get everything happening, and we've got kids to juggle and businesses and everything, but we finally found some time during lockdown for us here in Sydney. So what better time to have a chat than now? I'd love to welcome the beautiful Jannike Seiuli.
Seiuli.
Seiuli. There you go. She just told me that like a second ago, and I already got it. Welcome to the show, beautiful lady.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I mean, I know it's taken us a few weeks to get here, and now through lockdown we have the time. So I'm grateful to be here and just to chat with you and about your journey and our journey, I guess.
Absolutely.
And
it's been a joint journey for us, right?
Yeah. And also to congratulate you, because I mean, when you had asked, I was like, oh my gosh, I'd love to be a part of this. It was so exciting. But then to actually have the book in my hand and to read it and to see what you had put together, I was, as I was reading through and getting to my part, it was, I felt like, oh my gosh, was my story up to, their standard and everyone else? But then, I felt so proud and privileged, really, that you saw me worthy enough to be a part of your project, and I'm really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you for that. That's amazing. And you know what? So many of the ladies have said that. They've all gone like, wow, when they got asked, they were like, wow, why me? Oh my God, I hope my story will suffice. And that kind of blows my mind, because I see you in such an inspiring light, and the work that you've done and everything you've achieved, and being this incredible mom with 4 beautiful children. I think when I asked you, you only had 3 kids.
Yes. I did. I had my 4th baby yet. Yep, that's right.
That's it. Yeah. So I think you weren't a mom of 4 yet, but you were, just handling things like you always do, and doing all these amazing things. And you've always been a really inspirational, empowering woman to me. And even with my first book, when I wrote the first one, How to Live for Love and Hip Hop, you reached out immediately. You wanted me to be a part of your that incredible dinner series that you put on, and to come and sort of talk about that journey, and and everything that I was doing with that. So you've always seen me, and you've always seen others. So I couldn't not have done this book and not have you involved. So thank you.
Thank you.
How's it been for you, like, since the book's come out, and obviously seeing it and going, oh my gosh, not only am I in the book, I'm on the cover? A lot of the ladies weren't ready for that.
I know, I didn't know what to expect, and then when you said the book, and it was so, I was just wowed by it, and then just seeing the cover and seeing everyone on there, and then I just felt like, oh my goodness, it made me excited and I couldn't wait to read it, and to read about all these other women and their stories and their journeys at the moment. And so from start to finish, as I was reading, I was actually writing notes after each person that I read about. What stood out to me, what did I connect with, with this woman, and so, and just to see, I think one thing that I noticed with some of the stories was they started off with a totally different passion, and then as their journey goes on, as I was reading, then they ended up in something totally different, which I thought was so cool, because then it really, we think, because I think for me, why I know some of these other women that are on here, dance and performing arts was my biggest passion growing up, and things like that. Events was never on my mind, it was just, that wasn't. And then you don't realize as you're on that journey that it's actually, preparing you for other things, and so and that was something that I learned with some of the women that started off in something else, and then or there was always a setback, and they were always, that was the key thing that I found in each story, was that there was always a setback, there was always a challenge.
Yes.
And how I saw how, as I read their stories, it was how they overcame their challenge. Everyone had their own way of handling things, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it was, they got through, they made it through each challenge. And I think that was something that was similar in every story. But yeah, it was exciting. So I was actually, reading after every chapter, I was sort of writing down things that, because I was thinking, I was thinking, like, because I missed the launch because my baby was sick.
Yes.
And so then I couldn't come in. And I was kicking myself because I was like, I couldn't wait to get there and be there, because I like read the book, and then I knew, like, it was all fresh in my mind. I knew, I had written down notes of what would I like to ask this person, if I got to meet them. And
you really prepared. I love that.
I was like, and then that's why when I couldn't make it, I was like kicking myself, because, and then when I saw all the photos and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would have loved to have asked her this, and but I mean, maybe I could still, find them on your social medias and stuff like that. Absolutely. And just, connect with them one-on-one,
But you know what I think, and I love the fact that you've expressed so much of the pre-launch excitement, right? And I know a lot of the women they read it a lot. They use it as a morning sort of, start their day kind of ritual, just reading on something, and a few of them have written. And so to hear you actually say that, and to see your excitement for, wanting to have come to the launch. And there were a few ladies that couldn't. I mean, it was a terribly, the weather was ridiculous, so a few of the ladies lived quite far out, they couldn't make it. I know a couple of kids, some of the kids were sick, and it's totally understandable. But it's made me look at it and think, with this book, there's almost this really, really special sister friendshiphood that's come out of it. And I'm hoping, and I'm thinking on the 21st of March, hopefully every year, because that was when the official launch party was, but the book was launched on International Women's Day. So either date, I'd love to have a reunion of it, and then those who weren't able to, because obviously there were some ladies overseas that couldn't come. Exactly, but they had done little video montages, and they'd sent love lessons. But it's never the end, and I'm always up for a celebration of some sort. So I was thinking to do that next year. We'll have to we'll combine ideas and heads and put that together, because you were sorely missed. And I, again, like I said, you're a woman who, you've created some incredible events, incredible movements and moments in, the history of not only women here, but Polynesian women. Your culture, you represent your culture to the fullest with everything that you create here. Obviously, speaking about Pacific Runway, which is something I wasn't aware of until I think I'd met you a few years ago. And we were brought together by a mutual friend of ours, Eden, sending love to Eden. And, you guys should talk. And, Jannike does all this stuff. And
that's so Eden. So she will like connect everyone with everyone. And I love that.
She really does.
I love about when I read your book, most of these women I met through Eden, and so it was, it was so cool, because then I'm like, oh yes, I know this. I've met her through Eden, but that's just, sorry, I had to just say that, because that's so her. She loves to if she's something, a spark within people, she will connect you,
Absolutely, she's brilliant like that. And then I remembered us sort of talking. You came on the radio show. We did a promo for Pacific, and then you asked me to be the DJ for that year. I think it was 2019, I think, or 2018. It may have been 2018.
2018,
Oh my God, that was like my first fashion show that I ever got to DJ at, and just to be a part of something so culturally explosive in terms of the fashion and the inspiration and just the beauty of it and the pride. And you've done that, and you've been doing it successfully for so many years. That in itself is like a major empowering boss move. Can you let people that are watching know a little bit about what made you decide to take that route, to bring that that fashion show to this platform, and how it's been going for you?
Yeah, it's well, like I was saying before, that performing arts was something that I started off with, and from a young age, loved singing, loved dancing, all that type of stuff. And it was just when I was younger, in my teenage years, it was like that's the only thing that mattered, you know.
Yeah.
And as I got older, and then once I had my first son, I'd hurt my back from like during the birth.
Oh, wow.
And after that, I was so scared to get back into dancing and things. Like I was scared that something was going to happen to my back. And being bedridden for like 2 weeks at one point after I'd given birth, it was like such a fear of, well, if I felt like I'm being selfish if I want to go and dance, and if something happens to me, then who looks after my family?
That's right.
It's all that stuff. And it was kind of like, well, then your dream gets the back seat and you have to be mum, and all that type of stuff. And I still loved being surrounded by the whole performing arts. And I then slowly started, my parents are community workers, so I started doing things with them, just with the youth, like for Youth Week, to running dance concerts and things like that. So I was still surrounding myself with the performing arts side of things, but didn't actually realize that events was something that I was good at. And so my mum was like, oh, you're good at organizing and let's just chuck you in there. And so it was like all of that, being surrounded by still being surrounded by performing arts, but stepping into the event scene without knowing that was something that I was passionate about. Once I kind of clicked the light switch on, then it was like, okay, well, events is something that I'm actually good at, and I love organizing things and love bringing people together and all that type of stuff. And so then I had some friends that were hairstylists, fashion designers, and I just wanted to do something within our local community for Youth Week that year. This was 2012 in our Campbelltown area. And it was all Pacific, and it was just at our local RSL club. And I just thought that was it. We're going to have a great night. It's going to be a great event and sold out and all that type of stuff. And it was a huge success for our community. Like, we loved it. We all had fun, and it was all fun then, it was just like, everyone just loves it. It's just the talent, all that type of stuff.
No pressure, like the major
no pressure. Now, like now, the whole world is looking at me at the moment,
Oh my God.
That's why it's scary at times. Sometimes I'm like, I wish it was back then, but it was just lots of fun, and everyone had a great night. And after that, I had a guy from, actually, he's a friend, Leo Tanoy. He worked at Casula Powerhouse, and he had approached me about bringing it to Casula Powerhouse. So I was kind of like, I wasn't expecting it to sort of carry on or anything. And he was hosting a Pacific festival there, so we took the show there, and it was a part of his festival for like 3 years. And from there, then Carriage Works in 2015, and I think that was a massive step when we first went into there. So Lisa Havila, she was the director of Carriage Works at the time. She used to work here in Campbelltown, and so she knew that we were doing Pacific Runway, and that was sort of happening in the community. And she had asked, do you guys want to bring it here? We don't have a Pacific fashion event. It's only Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. That's what it was called at that time. So for me, it was a big step just to kind of jump from community to over here,
Right.
And so our first year was just 2015, and it was so much. It was fun, and it was just like, but a whole nother level, because I just felt like, oh my gosh, we're like now in this space where only Australian Fashion Week happens here, and so that pressure was on me,
Absolutely.
But I mean, 2015, and we've been at Carriage Works ever since. So now it's like, it's now my other home. I love going and just walking around. Okay, what else can we do and mix things up?
I was just going to say that, because obviously, you know, I mean, yeah, I've done a couple of the, you know, the fashion weeks, like with Mercedes Benz, but you know, and yeah, fashion is just such a personal thing, you know, and people go to shows for whatever their reasons are. And I sometimes find that with a lot of the, you know, the whole sort of like the global, you know, fashion brands and everything, sometimes things can end up looking a little samey. You feel like you're at the same show regardless of who the designer is. And of course, no offense to designers, because I understand that the work and the passion and the pain that goes into creating, especially clothing. But with Pacific Runway, not only I think is it that cultural sort of fusion and that pride of, you know, that every model that is walking down that runway, there is a sense of pride that they are wearing, because you can see it on their faces, right? Myself being, you know, a woman of color and being South African, you know, that's a culture that I'm beyond proud of. And so when I'm around the Polynesian culture and you know, from all of the different islands, there's so much pride that you all carry for the islands or the home that you know that you come from. So to see you all culminating on that stage, whether it is the color of the fabric, the print, the cut, the designer, even the music, it's like so transformative and it's such a transportative experience to be involved in that. To me, that sort of trumps your run-of-the-mill, you know, heavy hitter fashion show. That's just how I feel when I'm in that space.
And I'm glad that you've said that, because like everyone always asks me, like, what's your most favorite thing about the show, or, you know, and for me it's the experience. Like every year I have to change things up, because I always think, okay, when I go to an event, how do I want to feel, or, you know, so I always want the audience to feel a certain way. And my favorite part is when people walk in, and as soon as they walk in, you can see it on their face, just the you know, the sense of pride, and that they can be who they are, and in that space, like that's on a, you know, it's an iconic venue because of Australian Fashion Week and all that stuff. And so for our people to be in that same space, and you can just see it in their faces when they walk in, and they're just like so proud to be from the Pacific, you know, and that's something that's like my favorite part. I love just seeing people come in and beaming, and being with one another, and just feel a sense of pride. That's my most favorite thing. Everyone's like, what's your favorite thing? But I mean, it's only that. I love to see people just come in and just feel so proud to be where you're from, and people of color. And I always think, because we get such a big group of you know, there's people, a lot of non-Pacific people that buy tickets, and then when they come, it's such a cultural experience for them as well. And after the show, I love chatting with people and to get their feedback on how did you enjoy the show, or how did it make you feel, and all that type of stuff. So to hear you say that as well, and you know, you're not from the Pacific but a woman of color, you understand that pride that comes with it. And so I love that, and just to like, that's the most rewarding thing for me. You know, when we started, it was just people, designers here in Sydney, but then now it's people all over the world that come in and showcase here. So, but unfortunately this year, the majority of them are Sydney based, just to keep the show safe that people can get here. We do have a few from New Zealand and Fiji, but they do have their own contact people that live here in Sydney that their collection will come to, just in case something happens, they can't fly over. So there's lots of precautions that we've had to put in place for this year's show.
I can only imagine it must be such a logistical nightmare, especially with something like dealing with something like COVID, right? Which does not discriminate, right? It attacks wherever. So you're dealing with a major international sort of market, and not only that, but most of the designers, like you said, they're either based, you know, in the Pacific, so we've got to fly over. And so for yourself, you're a mum of four. You're a wife. You obviously, you know, juggle your household. You've got to take care of your kids as well. You've got an amazing husband who works side by side with you. So shout out to your awesome hubby. But how do you? I mean, I know for myself, I suffer with the worst anxiety, and I'm proudly well, not proudly, but I'm sort of very vulnerably and openly speaking out about it more now that I'm older. But I've always been plagued by it, and being in the limelight, being a DJ, being a writer, all of these things that ultimately put you on a public sort of platform wreaks havoc with you on the inside with your nerves and the whole deal. You're dealing with that on a whole other level, plus the juggle of being the mom and everything else. How do you prepare for something as big as this show? And what things do you put in place for you to have moments of pause where you can just reflect and go, right, this is what we're doing? How do you prepare for something?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that, because when I think it was like maybe 2017, I kind of had this moment because I was so caught up in the workload, and I only had 2 children at that time. So it was like, and I felt like, oh, I have to be it. You know, I've been invited to go to this. I have to be there. I have to be there to represent, because they invited me because of the show, and I've got to represent the brand and you know, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
It all became, you know, really overwhelming, and to a point where then I had to sit back, and luckily my husband is always by my side and supporting everything that I'm doing. And so, you know, he was quick to remind me that, you know, maybe you don't need to go to these everything, you know, maybe you should pick and choose what you can make, and if you can't make it, you can't make it. You know, people need to be understanding of you being a mother. And since then, it was like a wake-up call, and I'm kind of like, okay. And especially now, because now that I've got 2 more children on top of that, so it's like I really have to pick and choose things that I can participate in or attend to, because now my time is extremely limited.
Absolutely.
And for me, I've never been like, dancing was my only type of like fitness thing, you know. So I've never been one to like join a gym or anything, and just recently, after, I was like, never. I actually used to be that person who's like, why are they so like into the gym? I don't get that whole thing.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm the same. Listen, trust me, I can't deal with it. I'm like, why am I going to a room full of machines and equipment and other people on there doing better than I ever am? I don't need a reminder that I can't do this. So I'm not paying to be told I can't. So let's just get out.
Well, that was something that I was like, you know, I was always like, oh, no, I'm not keen, you know, blah, blah, blah. And people would always say, no, it's like for your mental health and blah, blah, and I never understood that. And then once I had my youngest son, he was born in July last year, and so he just turned 1. And so it was after I had him, then I was like, man, like my time was extremely limited. I needed something, you know. My parents are co-owners of a CrossFit gym, and I was kind of like, oh, I've never done look, I went from skipping the gym to trying to go to the CrossFit gym. So it was a big...
I've been watching you on social media, thing with lifting tires, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
But like, it was like, and then I'm like, okay, my dad was so like keen for us to, my siblings and I, to join, and you know, it's good for you, and we're like, no. And but then I found out, like, after I had my son, I needed something. I didn't know what it was, and so I started going, and it was something. Even then, that's whole nother health journey for me. It was just doing things that I never thought I could do. I was always too scared to lift weights because my back. I was like, I can't do that, you know. That, and so that's a whole nother journey. But I mean, that has helped me. That's been my go-to of, okay, when I get up in the morning, I can go do a session before my children wake up, and that gets me ready for the day. And I know everyone has their own thing. It could be, and even something as easy as just going for a walk, going for a run, or I'm a morning person, so I have to do something to wake me. Like once I'm up, I have to do something to start my day.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, and that's sort of my time away to zone out before I have to everything.
And I totally hear you. And I think it has something to do with age. I think as we get older as well, I've found with myself, a lot of the things that I used to be so avidly against, right? You know, you're never going to find me doing yoga, right? You're never going to find me in the gym. You're never going to find me doing it. Now, as you get older, and I think because we're living in such an obscure time in life. I think those things are now the things that are giving us the sanity and breathing a little bit of life back into us. Especially if you, I mean, I've never really been a major sort of active fan. Like I've always loved walking and, you know, all of that sort of thing. But other than that, everything else has always just been, oh, I can give it a try, but I'm not sure if it's my thing. Well, now, you know, I'm slowly starting to introduce the yoga things and the meditation and all of that type of thing. So it's definitely an age thing, and I think
it comes with age.
It does, and that acceptance that my body needs all the help it can get. Right. So I'm gonna put it out there.
I think that's definitely like for me the same thing. I'm just like, before it's like, I don't need to do that, and then as you get older, you're like, okay, this body needs some help.
I think when you round, I'm not sure if we're going to talk about it, but I'm, you know, listen, I'm 45 and I've waved the flag proudly, but I'm coming now down around the mountain of 46, and I can tell you right now, after 40. And they used to say this to you, and I never went, I'm good. Black don't crack, beige don't age, okay? Facially, you're right, but everything else, everything else, if you don't put in the work, it's going to leave you by the wayside. So it's definitely now is the time, especially with everything going on. So I totally hear what you're saying, and you know what, well done to you, because like I said, I see you sort of documented, and you know, and you're not like a gung-ho, like you better get it, you're just doing it. This is what I'm doing, and I think it's so inspiring. I really love that you do that.
Oh, thank you. I think it's just a reminder for me to, you know, I think it's more so when I first started going, I was like, oh yeah, I need help after I had my baby, or I just want to help to lose weight, or I didn't know what I was stepping into really. But then now it's all become about my mental health. I go because then it takes me away from the world for 1 hour. And for me, it was like, I've read this thing one time, and that like 1 hour of your day is 4% of your day. Like, and then it was just stuck in my head that I'm like, okay, 4% just for myself, you know, if I'm going for a walk or whatever, that's just to clear my mind and have myself ready for the day. And I remember we had a conversation one of the times when we couldn't get this going, and I remember I was having a really bad day, you know, like it was just like the kids, everything else, and and I was a mess actually, to be honest. And I just think, and I remember you saying, you know, to take that rest that we need and all that stuff, and you said, you know, how can we give from an empty cup, you know? And so that's always something that sticks in my mind, that you know, I can't, you know, we can't always be doing everything and anything. We're going to make sure that we're okay first, you know, before, and then so that we can be good for our family, you know.
Exactly right. And you know what, I found myself using that terminology with another friend of mine earlier this week about, you know, filling that sort of that cup, and no matter what it is, you know, we can only do so much. And I think if anything, this lockdown is proving to us women who do too much, right? The entrepreneurs, the mothers, the constant goal chaser and dream chaser, is that it is okay to have moments of pause. It's okay. It doesn't mean that we stop being fabulous and fierce and go-getters. But even those people need to rest. I mean, we look at all of these superstars around the world, you know, they all have 3-month-long vacations in, you know, Capri and Monaco. Clearly, that's not the kind of point that we're making right now. We will eventually.
Yeah.
I don't even think I'd want to take 3 months off. I can't even cope with being in lockdown for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks.
exactly. I'd be thinking, what am I going to do in that time? But you're right. Actually, the lockdown has been. That's another thing. I felt like just before the lockdown, so much pressure with prepping for the show and all that stuff, and it was getting intense. And then when lockdown happened, and I said to my husband the other night, I said, "It's so weird now that the lockdown's like we're in lockdown." For me, it's just like allowed me to work at a pace that's not so like I have to keep up with everything. I have to keep up with everything, and it's crazy that the lockdown, that's what it's done for me. But it's also another kind reminder to just take your time. That we don't need to be rushing through everything. And I mean, I think the excitement of having the show again this year, because last year got cancelled because of COVID. And now we're going into celebrating a 10th year. So it was like, oh yes, like, I've got all these ideas happening, and then a lockdown hits us, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like all my great ideas are just not going to happen right now again.
It's crazy. And what's really bad about that too is that now, like what you said, like all of the ideas, and then lockdown happens, and then you sit on it for a while, and then you start to manifest your ideas again, and then life will start again, and then you've got no time to do the other thing. And so it's just trying to find this balance, and I think we just have to learn as women and as successful women that one goal out of the 5 to achieve that in a year is more than I guess most people would probably do in a lifetime. I'm always told, because I can get very down on myself, and especially being a writer, it's a very vulnerable experience. So I tend to take some time off after I've written, major pieces or a lot of stuff. And there was a time where I was writing and interviewing celebrities and artists every week. I was doing phone interviews with big names, and you're in a role with something like that. And it was very hard to come down from that high. And then all of a sudden, things just kind of stopped. It's like you ride this crest, and it sort of stops. And then you get a bit antsy, and you're like, what do I do now? So you're looking for that next project. Because when writer's block hits, it's a crippling thing, and it's something that exists, because it's like your mind just shuts off. So I found with lockdown and with these periods we've had since last year, I've had to learn to just ride that wave and it's okay if I don't always have something to feel I have to write about. But the inspiration has been flowing so much that now I'm obviously working on the next book, and I'm now working on the follow-up to She Is Empowered, which will be due for release next year. So it'll be the next chapter to that. So it comes in waves, and when that wave comes, I try to ride it. But more often than not, I'm always in my head, and it is a nightmare to stop. It really can be.
It's funny that you say that, because I literally have a notebook that stays beside me on my drawer, and my husband, like, it's funny because everything that happens with the show, it's all something that I've dreamt about, or it's just, it always happens when I'm sleeping. And so my husband knows that if I'm awake in the middle of the night with my phone light and writing things, it's something that I've had an idea. Don't worry, I won't turn the light on, I won't wake everyone up. It's like I've got an idea, I'm writing it down, And I actually had that whole creative block before, like, we got offered to, we can go in and do 2021. Are you guys keen to continue, to run Pacific Runway for this year? And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, we didn't get to do last year. And then and at first, when last year got cancelled, I was kind of like, oh, I was a bit down about that, because I had all these ideas. And then once I had my baby, then it was like, oh my gosh, I would have had zero time. Like, there was no way. It was kind of like, well, that was a blessing in disguise, because I would have been like really run off my feet. So when they asked me that, like, this year, that we can go ahead, like, if you guys are keen, and I said yes, but then it was like I hadn't no ideas yet. I wasn't like, because I wasn't sure if things were going to go back to normal, if we were going to run this year. And everyone around me was so excited, but I felt like I haven't thought of what it's going to be. So for like a good month or two, it was just like, oh yeah, we're going through the process of preparing, but I wasn't like in the mindset of, oh yes, I know exactly what we're going to do. And so it was hard, but I think now that we actually go, like now that it's working through and we're doing it all, it's all exciting. And but there is a time where you can, like for me, that was a time where I had that whole creative block, and wasn't able to, like, I just wasn't feeling, oh, what are we actually doing this year, you know? And but it's all within, like how you said, it's just something that you can't switch off. And so it was like I was just thinking and thinking, but didn't have the right idea of what it was going to be like. I mean, once that happens, then it just definitely doesn't switch off, because now like all these ideas are here, there, everywhere.
I totally get you. I totally get you. It just rolls. But you know whatever this year brings for us, and I certainly hope that this is over. You know, even within the next month, because obviously, you know, there's people's safety and health, and you know, all of our safety and health, but it's so important for the entertainment industry to get back up again. We've taken such an immense hit that I know I was watching something on the news, and they said it'd take a number of years before we can fully make up for the loss that the entertainment and events industry has been hit with all of this. So I do pray that everything goes without a hitch for October for you this year, and what you do is just necessary realness, and it's so important to not only the fabric of what you're doing for the, you know, Pacific nations and for your people, and for each of the, you know, the cultures that you're representing with Pacific Runway, but just for women in general, like to see a kick-ass mum up there doing a thing, just putting everything together. You've got such an incredible team of, you know, both men and women behind you, but your team of other incredible females that you have working with you. It's so inspiring to watch and to see. So I wish you just all the good in life, just everything that is great for your brand and for what you're doing. It's just so
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome, and I hope to be able to come and see it again, you know, before too long. But before we end, I just want to ask you, obviously you're a mum of 4, you've got 3 boys and a girl, and as obviously talking about it, empowering women and being a mother of a daughter, what are you hoping that your legacy will be for your kids, but in particular for your daughter at the end of the day?
I think it's funny that you say that, because once again, thank you. You sent me this the frame with my picture in it, and I got it in the mail. I forgot that. I didn't even message you, but
no, you did. You said thank you. You did when we were trying to organize.
And my and now, like, and it stays in my room, and my daughter, she loves carrying it around. She gets angry, like, if she can't find it. So then she'll go, she'll come to me, she's like, is that mum? Is that mum? You know, and that makes me proud that and even with the book, like, I had to kind of hide my book away, because then she's always looking for it, because she knows that it's a book, you know. And so that even those little gestures are another reminder to, you know, that I have to, like, that I'm setting an example to someone in my own home, who will then, and I hope that she'll grow up and be able to see the things that I've been able to do on my path, and even her just being a part of it. And that's why I love also that my children come to the show. As much as I'm like the busiest person on the day, but and luckily for my family, they are there to bring my children, and for them to see what their mum has worked on. Like, I love that they're there, and that they want to be there, especially my eldest, because he's old enough to know what's going on. He loves, like, he's always like, mum, is, you know, are you doing the show this year? And they love to be there to see what their mum and dad have been working on. So I think it's just creating that path of and hoping that this is then an example, like that I'm a good example, and my husband, like for them, to grow up and walk in the same path.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for my daughter, I do hope that it's the same thing. I'm like, man, when you guys are old enough, it's your turn. You guys take over.
Pass the baton.
I come and just watch the show.
That's exactly right.
No pressure there.
Absolutely. Look, I think the way you are with your kids, and again, your children are front and center with everything you do. And I'm the same with my boys. I make sure that they, where they can come to age appropriate, events if I'm able to DJ it. And I've tried to take on a lot more sort of family friendly, DJ events now that I'm obviously older and I've got the kids. But I think it's important for our kids to see us in the line of work that we do and what we wave our flag so proudly for, because especially with the boys too, because we're inadvertently raising these young men to see strong, independent, these bold, fierce moms who are still in the roles of being wives and homemakers, but also women that are out there wanting to do this for themselves and for their purpose. And I think that speaks so many volumes. Good on you for everything, and thank you for tonight and for the time. And I know we've had to juggle.
I'm so glad we finally got to get together and do this. And I actually wish it was in person so I could give you a hug, because now life seems like everything is online at the moment.
Know. I'm so used to these little boxes, and I said even before I launched this channel, I've been putting it off for a number of years because I love the interview process, and you've been on my radio show, you know what I've done for many years. And I thrive in this environment, and I love talking to people, but I miss I had a whole sort of thing in my mind about, going to people's homes and interviewing them in their homes. And I know that that'll come about, but now I just have to deal with the little Brady box squares and the little Brady Bunch family square thing. And that's just how we're going to deal with it. But at least it's still bringing the story and the person to light. So grateful for those small mercies, but thank you for your time and your story. And
I'm so glad we finally got to do this. So
absolutely, my love, and best of luck, and stay safe, and hopefully we'll see each other soon.
Yes, likewise. You take care.
Thank you.